She returned a lost wallet without taking a penny, not knowing the owner was a young millionaire. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a cold, windy afternoon in New York City when Emma Brooks, a kind-hearted young woman with a modest background, found herself standing on a bustling street corner, clutching her worn-out purse. Her shoes scuffed from too many years of use, and her coat was a hand-me-down from a friend who had outgrown it years ago. Despite the chill in the air, Emma's heart was warm as she stepped into a local cafe, hoping to escape the harsh winds for just a moment. As she ordered a coffee, her mind wandered to the upcoming rent payment she couldn't afford and the mountain of bills waiting to be sorted. As Emma waited for her drink, she noticed something strange: a leather wallet lying abandoned on one of the cafe chairs. At first, she hesitated, unsure of what to do. It wasn't her business, but something about the wallet felt wrong just sitting there. Without a second thought, she picked it up and opened it, finding an assortment of credit cards, a few $100s in cash, and an identification card that belonged to a man named Lucas Reed. Emma's first instinct was to take the money. After all, she had bills to pay and was struggling to make ends meet. But then, something inside her refused to act on that temptation. She closed the wallet and decided to do the right thing. She would return it, no matter the cost. Without taking a single penny, Emma carefully tucked the wallet into her bag, hoping that she could find the man who had lost it. She asked around the cafe, but no one knew who it belonged to. Determined, she decided to walk around the block, scanning the area for any sign of the wallet's owner. Her legs were sore, but she didn't care. She knew she was doing the right thing, and that feeling kept her going. As she turned a corner, her eyes landed on a man who appeared to be looking for something. He was well-dressed, wearing a tailored coat and expensive shoes. His eyes scanned the ground frantically as if he had lost something important. She approached him cautiously, her heart racing. "Excuse me, sir," she said. "I believe you might have lost this." She handed him the wallet, her fingers trembling slightly. The man looked at her, a bit confused at first, before recognition crossed his face. "Oh, you found it," he said, his voice full of relief. "Thank you so much." He paused, looking her up and down as if surprised by her appearance. "I didn't expect someone like you to be the one who found it," he added, still processing the situation. Emma smiled, feeling a little embarrassed. "I just did what anyone would do," she said softly. "I didn't want to take anything." The man looked at her for a moment longer, his expression shifting from confusion to something else entirely: curiosity. He gave her a polite nod, and Emma quickly turned to walk away, but before she could leave, he stopped her. "Wait," he called out. "I don't know how I can ever repay you for this." Emma shrugged, not needing anything in return. But to her surprise, the man continued, "Please, let me buy you a coffee, at least." She hesitated for a moment but then agreed, stepping back into the warmth of the cafe. Little did Emma know, this chance encounter would change the course of her life in ways she could never have imagined. As Emma sat at the table, her coffee cooling in front of her, she couldn't help but glance at the man sitting across from her. Lucas Reed, the owner of the wallet she had returned, was everything she wasn't. Well-dressed, confident, and clearly from a world of luxury. He was the kind of person she had always looked at from afar, people who never seemed to worry about bills, jobs, or survival. Emma didn't belong in his world. But, as they sat there, something unexpected happened. For the first time in a long while, she felt at ease. There was no pretense, no judgment, just two people talking over coffee. Lucas smiled warmly at her, his eyes sparkling with genuine interest. "So, Emma, tell me about yourself," he said, leaning back in his chair. She hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to answer. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not in a setting like this. "Well," she began, "I work at a diner, just trying to get by." She could hear the hesitance in her own voice. It wasn't that she was ashamed of her job, but she knew it wasn't glamorous. Lucas nodded, listening intently as she spoke. I've been trying to save up for a little studio of my own. I want to paint, you know. I have this dream of opening an art gallery someday." Her voice became more animated as she talked about her passion. It felt good to share that part of herself. Lucas, however, was quiet for a moment. His gaze softened as he looked at her. "That's amazing," he said. "You deserve to have that dream. A studio, a gallery, all of it." Emma looked at him, a little taken aback. Why was he being so kind to her? She wasn't used to receiving compliments from people like him. They sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of the words hanging between them. Then, Lucas spoke again. "You know, you've got something special, Emma. Most people wouldn't have bothered to return the wallet. Most people would have taken the money and walked away." His words stung a little, but in a way that made her heart warm. "I just did what anyone should do," she replied, shrugging. "I didn't want to take anything from you. It wasn't mine." Lucas looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without warning, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "I don't normally do this," he said, "but I'd love for you to come work with me. I run a charity, and we're always looking for creative people to help with our projects. Your skills could really make a difference." Emma blinked, surprised by the offer. She had never considered working for a charity, let alone with someone so influential. But before she could respond, Lucas continued, "Don't worry. I'm not offering this as a favor. I think you have real talent. I want to help you get your start. Maybe it's a way to help you reach your dream." Emma sat back in her chair, her mind racing. This was more than she could ever have hoped for, yet it felt so out of place in her world. She had been struggling just to make rent, and now this man, someone so far out of her league, was offering her a chance to work with him. She had no idea what to say. But Lucas wasn't giving her time to dwell on it. "Take a few days to think it over," he said. "I know it's a big decision, but I really believe in you." Emma nodded, still processing everything. She could feel the weight of the moment, the turning point in her life. As they finished their coffee, Lucas stood up, sliding his coat over his shoulders. "I'll give you my card," he said. "Call me whenever you're ready." With that, he left, leaving Emma alone in the cafe with more questions than answers. What was she supposed to do with this opportunity? Was it real? Or was he just being kind out of guilt for losing his wallet? And, most importantly, what was she supposed to do with the part of herself that had never dared to dream this big? Emma sat there for a while, the card resting in her hand. She didn't know where this would lead, but she knew one thing: her life was about to change, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. It had been 2 days since Emma received the business card from Lucas Reed, and she still hadn't made up her mind. She had thought about it constantly, turning the idea over and over in her head. Working for a charity? It felt surreal, like something out of a dream. She had always been the kind of person who kept her feet firmly on the ground, never allowing herself to entertain ideas of grandeur. Her life was about surviving, paying rent, buying groceries, making sure she had enough to get by. Yet, here was Lucas, offering her an opportunity to join a world she didn't know how to navigate. On the 3rd day, after another long shift at the diner, Emma found herself walking to a small park near her apartment. She needed some time alone to think, away from the noise of the city. The park was quiet, the evening air crisp, and the leaves swirled on the ground as a cool breeze passed through. She sat on a bench, staring at the few people walking their dogs or joggers passing by. She thought back to their conversation. Lucas had told her to think about the offer, to not rush into anything. But what if she was making a mistake by not taking the chance? What if this was the break she had been waiting for? She took out the business card from her pocket and looked at it again. His words echoed in her mind. "I believe in you. I think you have real talent." Emma sighed, the weight of the decision pressing on her chest. She knew she had always wanted to be more than just a waitress. Her passion for art had been with her since childhood. She had a dream: she wanted to open her own art studio and gallery one day. But she had never had the resources or the connections to make that dream a reality. Could Lucas's offer be the key to unlocking that door? Or was she just another person he was trying to help out of guilt? As the wind picked up, Emma stood up from the bench, feeling a sudden sense of clarity. She had been holding herself back, stuck in her own doubts. She had spent so much of her life trying to survive. But what if this was the opportunity to truly thrive? She took a deep breath, making up her mind. It was time to take a step forward. She dialed the number on Lucas's business card. Her heart raced as the phone rang, each second feeling like an eternity. When the phone finally clicked, Lucas's voice came through, calm and confident. "Hello, Emma," he said, as if he had been expecting her call. "Hi, Lucas," she replied, her voice steady despite the nerves. "I've been thinking a lot about your offer." There was a brief pause on the other end, and Emma could hear him exhale, like a weight had been lifted. "I'm glad you called," he said. "So, what do you think?" Emma looked around the park. Her mind finally made up. "I'd like to take you up on your offer. I want to work with you at the charity." She could almost hear the smile in Lucas's voice. "That's great to hear, Emma. I knew you would make the right choice. I'll have my assistant send over the details." As Emma hung up the phone, she felt a rush of excitement mixed with nervousness. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was moving towards something greater than herself. The next day, she received an email with all the details. Lucas had arranged for her to meet the team at his charity the following week. She couldn't believe it. Everything was happening so fast. Emma spent the next few days preparing. She knew she wasn't the most polished person, but she was determined to give it her all. The charity office was located in one of the nicest parts of the city, a place that felt completely foreign to her. She had never stepped foot in such an upscale area, and the thought of being there made her feel a little out of place. On the day of her meeting, she dressed carefully, choosing a modest but neat outfit. She caught the subway to the address, trying to calm her nerves with each passing minute. When she arrived, she was greeted by a young woman in a suit, who led her into a sleek conference room. The walls were adorned with colorful artwork, and the whole place smelled like fresh coffee and polished wood. Emma's nerves were at an all-time high as she sat down. Then, Lucas walked in. He smiled at her, his usual warm demeanor instantly putting her at ease. "I'm glad you made it, Emma," he said. "We're excited to have you here." Emma smiled, trying not to show how overwhelmed she felt. As they discussed the details of her role, she realized just how much she had to learn. But there was something about Lucas's confidence in her that gave her the strength to keep going. This was her chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. The first few weeks at the charity were a whirlwind for Emma. She had never worked in an office environment before, let alone one that was so well-funded and well-organized. The building itself was a massive glass structure with a sleek, modern design, and she couldn't help but feel a little out of place every time she walked in. The contrast between her modest apartment and this new world was stark, but there was a part of her that felt excited. The staff was friendly, though some seemed a bit wary of her at first. Emma wasn't sure if it was because she was new or because they could tell she wasn't used to this type of environment. Still, she kept her head down and worked hard, learning everything she could. Her role was to help organize the charity's events, manage communications, and assist with fundraising. It was a lot to take in, but Emma was determined to prove herself. Lucas was always supportive, stopping by her desk every so often to check in, ask if she needed anything, and offer encouragement. "You're doing great," he told her one day, giving her a smile that made her heart flutter. "I'm impressed by how quickly you're picking things up." Emma smiled back, grateful for his kind words, though she was still struggling with some of the tasks. It wasn't the work itself that was difficult, it was the constant pressure she felt to be perfect. She wasn't used to working with such high expectations. At night, she would go home exhausted, her mind racing with all the things she still needed to learn. She missed the simple days at the diner when things had been easier, even if they had been hard in a different way. But she knew deep down that she couldn't go back, not now. Slowly, Emma began to feel more at ease with the work. She started taking on more responsibilities, and even managed to help organize a fundraising gala that raised more money than anyone had expected. The night of the gala, she was nervous, but Lucas was there to reassure her. "You've done a great job," he told her as they watched guests mingle in the grand ballroom. "This event is a huge success, and it's all because of your hard work." His praise made her heart swell with pride. The gala was a turning point for Emma. It wasn't just the money they had raised, it was the sense of belonging she felt when she looked around and saw the positive impact they were making on so many people's lives. She realized that the work she was doing here wasn't just a job, it was her purpose. After the event, Lucas asked her to stay behind to help clean up. As the staff left for the night, Emma and Lucas found themselves alone in the now empty ballroom, surrounded by empty glasses and leftover food. "I'm really proud of you, Emma," Lucas said, his voice soft. "You've come a long way since we first met." Emma smiled, feeling a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. "Thanks, Lucas," she said, her voice sincere. "I couldn't have done it without your support." There was a brief silence between them, the air thick with unspoken words. Emma wasn't sure what had changed, but there was something different about the way Lucas was looking at her. It wasn't just admiration anymore. It was something more. "Emma," Lucas began, his voice low, "I want you to know that I see a lot of potential in you. Not just here, but in everything you do. You have a fire inside you, and I think you're just getting started." Emma looked up at him, unsure of how to respond. His words had a weight to them, a depth she hadn't expected. "Thank you," she said softly, her heart pounding. There was a pause, and then Lucas stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in the quiet room. "I've always believed that helping people is the most important thing we can do," he said, his eyes searching hers. "But sometimes, I wonder if we should help ourselves first." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know what he meant, but something in his tone made her feel like the ground beneath her was shifting. Lucas reached out and gently took her hand, his fingers warm against her cold skin. "Emma," he whispered, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been wanting to say for a long time." She felt her heart race as he looked into her eyes. What was he about to say? Was it what she thought it was? The moment stretched on, and for a second, Emma felt like time had stopped altogether. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She wasn't sure if she was ready for whatever was coming next. The room felt electric as Lucas held Emma's hand, his eyes locked on hers. For a brief moment, everything around them faded. The sounds of the gala, the people, the buzz of the night, none of it seemed to matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was the moment they were sharing, the closeness between them that neither could ignore. But Emma's heart raced, unsure of what to say next. Was this just a fleeting moment? Was he going to tell her something that would change everything? Lucas opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, Emma gently pulled her hand away. She wasn't sure why, but she needed a moment to process everything. She stepped back slightly, trying to clear the cloud of confusion that had settled in her mind. "Lucas," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I don't know what to say." Lucas didn't step forward again. Instead, he took a deep breath and gave her a reassuring smile. "Emma," he said, his voice calm and steady, "I've been wanting to tell you this for a while now. You mean more to me than you think." Emma's heart skipped a beat, and she felt her cheeks flush. She couldn't bring herself to speak right away. Instead, she just stared at him, waiting for him to continue. "I know it may seem sudden," Lucas continued, "but there's something I've come to realize these past few months. You're more than just someone who works at the charity. You're someone I admire, someone I've come to care about deeply." The words hit Emma like a wave. She wasn't prepared for this. She had always seen Lucas as the successful, confident man who had helped her change her life. But hearing him say this, hearing him say that he cared about her, was something she hadn't expected. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She wasn't sure what she was supposed to say. She felt her emotions swirl, and for the first time since she had met Lucas, she realized just how much she had let him into her life. But before she could gather her thoughts, Lucas stepped a little closer, his voice softer now. "Emma," he said, "I know this isn't easy to process, but I wanted to be honest with you. I can't keep pretending that I don't feel something for you. What we have isn't just professional." His words hung in the air, and Emma's heart felt like it was about to burst. Was this really happening? Was Lucas really confessing his feelings for her? She glanced down, trying to collect herself. She had spent so much time focusing on her career, on her goals, on trying to make a better life for herself. She hadn't expected love to enter the equation. She wasn't sure she even had room for it. But as she looked back up at Lucas, she saw the sincerity in his eyes, the vulnerability that he was showing her. It made her want to believe in this, to believe in them. "Lucas, She stopped herself, unsure of how to finish her sentence. Her mind was spinning with conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to take a step back, to protect herself from the complications of mixing business with feelings. But another part of her, one that she hadn't listened to in a long time, wanted to take the leap. She took a deep breath, her gaze meeting his. "I don't know what to say," she said finally, her voice soft. "I didn't expect this. I've always kept my distance from people like you. I never thought someone like you would even look at someone like me." Lucas shook his head, his expression earnest. "That's where you're wrong, Emma," he said. "I don't care about your past or your background. I care about you, about who you are now, and who you're becoming." His words struck her heart in a way she couldn't explain. She had spent so much of her life feeling invisible, feeling like she didn't belong, that the idea of someone truly seeing her for who she was, not for her past or her circumstances, was overwhelming. She took a step closer to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I'm not ready?" she asked. Lucas smiled softly, his eyes warm. "You don't have to be ready, Emma. I'm not asking you to decide anything right now. I just wanted to tell you how I feel. I wanted to be honest with you, because I think you deserve that." The tension in the room seemed to lift, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Emma didn't feel the weight of her past holding her back. She didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time, she felt like she could open herself up to it. She smiled, a small but genuine smile. "Thank you, Lucas," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I don't know what this means yet, but I'm willing to figure it out." Lucas nodded, his expression softening. "Take your time, Emma," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." As they stood there, in the quiet of the ballroom, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her. Whatever the future held, she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. As the days passed after their conversation in the gala ballroom, Emma found herself caught between excitement and uncertainty. The connection with Lucas was undeniable, yet she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She had never been one to let her emotions guide her, always keeping her focus on the practical matters of life. But now, for the first time in a long while, she was forced to confront something much deeper. Lucas had been clear about his feelings, but Emma was still unsure about her own. The last few weeks had been a blur of new responsibilities at the charity, late-night hours at the office, and growing tension in her personal life. She was doing well at work, but her internal world was a different story. Every time she saw Lucas, her heart raced. But she couldn't shake the fear that came with allowing herself to be vulnerable. Was she really ready to open up to someone, especially someone like him? The gap between their worlds was still there, no matter how often they spent time together. One evening, after another long day at work, Emma found herself walking home from the charity office, her mind racing with the thoughts she had been avoiding. It was already dark, and the streets were quieter than usual. She walked quickly, hoping the cold air would help clear her mind. As she passed a small park, she noticed a bench under a streetlight and decided to take a break. She sat down, feeling the exhaustion of the day in her bones. For a while, she just stared at the city around her, letting the silence settle. She couldn't avoid the truth any longer. She had feelings for Lucas. Strong feelings, but she didn't know how to deal with them. She had worked so hard to build a life for herself, to stay independent and strong, but now she was being forced to confront a different side of herself, one that she had kept hidden for so long. Her thoughts were interrupted when she heard footsteps approaching. Looking up, she saw Lucas walking toward her, his face illuminated by the streetlight. He was dressed casually, his jacket slightly unzipped, and his hands in his pockets. "Emma," he said softly, his voice carrying across the quiet night. "I was hoping I could find you." Emma stood up, surprised to see him here. "Lucas, what are you doing here?" she asked, a hint of nervousness in her voice. Lucas gave her a small smile. "I had a feeling you might be here. You've been on my mind a lot lately." He stopped in front of her, his eyes meeting hers with a sincerity that made her heart skip a beat. "Can we talk?" he asked. Emma hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She didn't know why, but something about this moment felt different. "Of course," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They walked together to the bench, where they both sat down. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the tension between them palpable. Lucas finally broke the silence, his tone soft but firm. "I know things have been a little complicated between us," he began. "But I want you to know that I'm not asking for anything more than what you're willing to give." Emma looked at him, trying to process his words. She had always been cautious with people, never letting anyone too close. But with Lucas, it felt different. He wasn't just someone who was offering her a chance at a new life. He was someone who cared, who saw her for who she was, flaws and all. "I don't want you to feel pressured, Emma," Lucas continued. "I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." His words settled in her heart like a soothing balm. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like she wasn't alone. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," Emma replied, her voice quiet but steady. "And I realize that I'm scared. I'm scared of opening up, of letting someone in. I've always done everything on my own, and it's hard for me to rely on anyone else." Lucas nodded, his expression understanding. "I get it," he said softly. "But I'm not asking you to give up your independence. I just want you to know that you don't have to do everything alone. You have me." Emma felt a lump form in her throat, her emotions threatening to spill over. She hadn't realized how much she had needed to hear those words. It was like a weight had been lifted from her chest. She took a deep breath, gathering the courage to speak. "I've spent so much of my life trying to protect myself," she said, her voice trembling. "But maybe it's time to stop running from what I feel. I don't know where this will go, Lucas, but I want to see where it takes us." Lucas's eyes softened, and he reached out, taking her hand in his. "We'll take it one step at a time," he said, his voice full of warmth and understanding. "There's no rush." Emma smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. As they sat there, hand in hand, Emma knew that this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be uncertain, but it no longer felt as daunting. Together, they would face whatever came next. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Lucas continued to grow closer. Their conversations were more than just work-related now. They began to share personal stories, the kind of stories that exposed vulnerabilities. They spent late nights at the office working on projects. But it wasn't the work that kept them together, it was the growing connection they both felt. For Emma, it was a revelation. She had always kept a part of herself guarded, never allowing anyone to truly get close. But with Lucas, there was something different. He wasn't just someone she worked for or admired from afar. He had become someone she could trust. One afternoon, after another successful event that Emma had helped organize, Lucas invited her out to dinner. They were celebrating, but Emma could sense there was something more to his invitation. As they sat across from each other at a cozy, dimly lit restaurant, the atmosphere felt more intimate than ever before. Lucas, who usually maintained a professional demeanor, was smiling at her in a way that made her heart flutter. "Emma, I've been thinking about something," he began, his voice soft but serious. Emma raised an eyebrow, curious. "What's on your mind?" she asked. Lucas hesitated for a moment, then continued. "I've been in this business for a long time. I've seen a lot of people come and go, but you're different. I can tell you have something special. You don't just do your job, you put your heart into it. And it's not just that. It's the way you care about people. It's the way you treat everyone with respect, no matter who they are." Emma felt a warmth spread across her chest at his words. She wasn't used to receiving such genuine praise, especially not from someone like Lucas, who had achieved so much in his career. But there was something in his eyes, something sincere, that made her feel seen for the first time. She smiled, her voice quiet. "Thank you, Lucas. That means a lot to me." Lucas reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I mean it, Emma," he said, his voice low. "I know this might be a bit forward, but I can't help the way I feel." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She looked into his eyes, and for a moment, everything else faded away. She had never expected to find herself in this position, to be sitting across from someone so accomplished, someone she had looked up to, and now feeling a connection that went beyond admiration. "Lucas, Emma started, but she couldn't find the right words. She had spent so much of her life keeping her emotions in check, always cautious, always guarded. But in this moment, she felt like she could let go of those walls. Lucas squeezed her hand, sensing her hesitation. "I know it's a lot to take in," he said gently. "But I want you to know that I'm here for you, whatever you decide." Emma looked at him, her emotions swirling. She had been so focused on her own struggles, on making a living, on building her career, that she hadn't stopped to consider what it would be like to let someone in. But now, as she sat across from Lucas, she realized how much she wanted to take that leap. "I'm not sure I'm ready," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've spent so long doing everything on my own. I'm scared to rely on someone else." Lucas nodded, his expression understanding. "I get that," he said. "But you don't have to do everything on your own anymore. I'm here to support you, Emma. You don't have to be afraid of opening up to me." The sincerity in his voice melted some of the fear inside her. She had spent so much time building walls around herself, afraid to let anyone in, afraid of getting hurt. But Lucas wasn't asking for her to change overnight. He wasn't asking her to give up her independence, he was simply offering his support. As they sat there, hand in hand, Emma felt something shift within her. She wasn't ready to make any big decisions yet, but for the first time, she felt like she could trust him. She wasn't alone anymore, and that was enough for now. Lucas smiled at her, a small but genuine smile that made Emma's heart flutter. "Take your time," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." And with those words, Emma felt a sense of calm wash over her. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time, she felt like she was heading in the right direction. Whatever the future held, she was no longer walking through it alone. She had Lucas by her side, and that gave her the courage to face whatever came next. The days that followed Lucas's confession were a mix of emotions for Emma. She had been working hard at the charity, learning more each day about the projects they were working on. But the connection she had with Lucas had also deepened. It wasn't just about the charity anymore. It was about their growing relationship. Despite all of her reservations, she found herself looking forward to the moments they spent together, even if they were simple. But as much as Emma wanted to embrace this new chapter of her life, there was always that lingering question in her mind: was she making the right decision? Lucas had been incredibly patient with her. He never pushed her to make any decisions or forced her into anything. He simply offered his support, telling her that he would be there for her, no matter what. Yet, she couldn't shake the fear that by getting closer to him, she might lose herself. She had spent so long building her own life, carving out her place in the world, that the thought of letting someone else in, of allowing herself to rely on someone else, felt like stepping into the unknown. One evening, as the two of them walked out of the office after a long day of work, Lucas spoke up. "Emma, I know things have been a little complicated," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "But I want to make sure we're on the same page. I don't want you to feel pressured by anything." Emma stopped in her tracks, her heart skipping a beat. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear those words. "Lucas," she said softly, turning to face him, "I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to take that next step yet." Lucas nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I understand," he said. "I'm not going anywhere, Emma. I just want you to know that I care about you, and I want to help you in any way I can." Emma's heart swelled at his words. She had been so focused on her own fears, her own doubts, that she hadn't realized just how much Lucas had been trying to show her. It wasn't about rushing things. It was about being there for each other, step by step. "Thank you, Lucas," Emma said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm still figuring things out, but I want to be honest with you. I don't want to let my fears hold me back." Lucas smiled softly, his eyes filled with understanding. "There's no rush, Emma. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Just take it one day at a time." With those words, Emma felt a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she could breathe. She didn't have to have everything figured out all at once. She didn't have to rush into anything. She could take her time, and Lucas would be there with her every step of the way. Over the next few weeks, Emma continued to work hard at the charity, but now there was a sense of peace that came with it. She wasn't just focused on her work anymore. She was learning to enjoy the moments she had with Lucas, whether they were shared in the office or walking together after a long day. Slowly, the walls she had built around herself started to crumble. She began to open up more, sharing her dreams, her fears, her past with Lucas. And each time she did, she felt more and more like herself. One evening, after a particularly successful event at the charity, Lucas and Emma were walking through the park near her apartment. The evening air was crisp, and the sound of their footsteps echoed softly on the pavement. Lucas stopped in front of a bench and turned to her. "You know, Emma," he said, "I think we're doing well. Not just with work, but with us." Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I think so too," she said. "I'm not sure what the future holds, but I feel like I'm in the right place." Lucas reached out and took her hand, his fingers warm against hers. "I'm glad to hear that," he said softly, "because I want you to know that whatever happens, I'm here." As they sat on the bench together, the world around them seemed to fade away. It was just the two of them, and in that moment, Emma knew she was exactly where she needed to be. She didn't have all the answers, but she had Lucas by her side. And that, for now, was enough. The weeks that followed felt like a dream for Emma. With each passing day, she grew more comfortable with the work at the charity, her bond with Lucas strengthening. They were no longer just colleagues, they were partners in something much bigger than either of them could have anticipated. But just as things were starting to settle into a rhythm, a new challenge emerged that would test not only Emma's professional abilities, but also her personal life. It started with a phone call one evening. Emma was sitting at her small kitchen table, reviewing some documents when her phone buzzed. The screen lit up with the name of her landlord. She had been expecting a call about the overdue rent, but this one was different. "Emma," her landlord's voice came through the line, "I'm afraid we need to talk. You haven't made any payments this month, and I can't keep waiting." Emma felt a pang of panic in her chest. She had been so focused on the charity, on the events, on everything else that she had fallen behind on her personal life. The rent had slipped through the cracks, and now it was catching up with her. "I understand," Emma replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'll make the payment as soon as possible. Please, just give me a little more time." There was a brief silence before the landlord responded. "I've already given you more than enough time, Emma. I'm afraid I'll have to start the eviction process if the payment isn't made by the end of the week." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Eviction? The thought of losing her apartment, of losing everything she had worked so hard for, was overwhelming. She ended the call and sat there for a moment, trying to breathe through the rising panic. How had she let this happen? She had worked so hard at the charity, trying to make a difference, but now everything was at risk. The next day, after hours at the office, Emma found herself sitting alone on the park bench again, staring at the cold pavement beneath her feet. Her mind was racing. What was she going to do? She couldn't afford to lose her apartment, not now. She had no family to fall back on, no one to help her. She had worked too hard to let everything slip away because of a missed payment. Just as she was starting to feel the weight of the world on her shoulders, a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "Emma?" It was Lucas. She hadn't expected to see him here, but there he was, walking toward her with a concerned look on his face. He sat down beside her, his presence calming. "What's going on?" he asked gently. Emma didn't know why, but for some reason, she felt like she could tell him everything. She didn't have to hide anymore. She took a deep breath and explained everything: the missed rent, the threat of eviction, the weight she felt bearing down on her. As she spoke, she felt the tears welling up in her eyes, but she blinked them back. She had never let herself cry in front of anyone, not even Lucas. But for some reason, in that moment, she didn't feel the need to hide her vulnerability. Lucas listened intently, his expression softening with each word she spoke. When she finished, there was a long silence before he spoke. "Emma, you don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice firm. "I'll help you. We'll figure this out together." Emma shook her head, the weight of pride and fear making her voice tremble. "I don't want to be a burden," she said softly. "You've already done so much for me." Lucas reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "You're not a burden, Emma," he said, his tone unwavering. "You're someone I care about, and I want to help you. We're partners, right? In everything." His words hit her deeply, and for the first time in a long while, she felt the walls around her heart begin to crack. She had always been so independent, so used to doing everything herself, but in this moment, with Lucas by her side, she realized that it didn't have to be that way. She didn't have to carry the weight of the world alone. Lucas wasn't asking her to give up her independence. He was simply offering to walk beside her through this. Emma nodded slowly, the tears she had been holding back finally spilling over. "Thank you, Lucas," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I would do without you." Lucas squeezed her hand, offering her a small but reassuring smile. You don't have to do anything without me, he said gently. We'll take care of this together. In the days that followed, Lucas helped Emma in ways she never expected. He didn't just offer financial support, he helped her navigate the conversation with her landlord. And he made sure she knew she wasn't alone. Together, they worked out a payment plan, and with Lucas's guidance and support, Emma was able to keep her apartment. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had been so afraid of relying on others, so afraid of letting herself be vulnerable. But Lucas had shown her that it was okay to accept help, to lean on someone when things got tough. And in that moment, as she stood beside him, she realized that maybe this was what it meant to truly live, to not have to do everything alone, to have someone who would always be there to help carry the load. The weeks that followed Emma's conversation with Lucas were a blur of change. With his help, she managed to keep her apartment, and life began to feel a little more stable. Yet, there was still a sense of uncertainty, a lingering fear that something could go wrong at any moment. She was working hard at the charity, learning more each day, but the strain of trying to balance her personal and professional life weighed heavily on her. As she continued to grow closer to Lucas, she couldn't help but notice the growing tension between them. There were moments when she felt like they were drifting apart, even though they were spending more time together. Lucas had been incredibly supportive, but Emma's doubts were starting to resurface. She wasn't sure if she was ready to fully embrace a relationship with him, or if she was simply too afraid to let go of her past fears. One evening, after a long day at the office, Lucas invited her to dinner. It wasn't the first time they had gone out together, but tonight, there was something different in the air. They arrived at a quiet, intimate restaurant in the city, the kind of place where the soft murmur of conversation mixed with the clink of silverware. The atmosphere was calm, a perfect escape from the stress of their daily lives. As they sat down, Lucas looked at her with a thoughtful expression. "Emma," he began, his voice gentle, "I've been thinking a lot about us lately." Emma felt her heart skip a beat. She had been trying to avoid the inevitable conversation about their relationship, but she knew it was coming. "What about us?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas took a deep breath, as if gathering his thoughts. "I think we've both been holding back," he said. "I can feel it. I care about you, Emma, more than I've cared about anyone in a long time. But I know you're still struggling with something." Emma swallowed hard, the words she had been avoiding now sitting heavy in her chest. She had always been afraid of getting too close to people, of allowing herself to be vulnerable. She had spent so many years building walls around her heart that now, when someone like Lucas was trying to get in, it felt almost impossible. "I don't want to be scared anymore," she said quietly, her voice filled with emotion. "But I don't know how to stop being afraid." Lucas reached across the table and took her hand in his. His touch was warm, steady, and it gave her the strength to continue. "I understand, Emma," he said softly, "but you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to carry all the weight by yourself. I'm here with you, and I'm not going anywhere." The sincerity in his voice made Emma feel something shift inside her. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face everything on her own. The dinner continued with light conversation, but Emma's mind was racing. She couldn't ignore the feelings she had for Lucas, nor could she deny the fact that he had been there for her in ways no one ever had before. But even as her heart ached with the desire to take a chance, the fear still lingered. The next morning, after a restless night of tossing and turning, Emma went for a walk in the park to clear her mind. The sun was shining, and the air was fresh, but she felt a heaviness in her chest. She was surrounded by the beauty of the world, but inside, she still felt like something was missing. As she walked along the path, she suddenly spotted Lucas sitting on a bench near the fountain, his back to her. He looked up as she approached, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "Hey," he greeted her with a smile. "You okay?" Emma hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to put her feelings into words. She had always prided herself on being independent, but now she felt lost. "I'm not sure," she admitted, sitting down beside him. "I'm scared, Lucas. I don't know how to stop being afraid of letting go." Lucas turned to her, his expression soft. "Emma, it's okay to be scared," he said, his voice reassuring. "But you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to face everything by yourself. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." He reached out and gently took her hand. The contact was comforting, and Emma felt the weight of her fears begin to lift, even if only for a moment. "I don't want to be afraid anymore," she said quietly. "I want to take that next step with you, but I'm just not sure how." Lucas smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "We'll take it one step at a time," he said. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. All we need to do is move forward, together." For the first time in a long time, Emma felt a sense of peace wash over her. She didn't need to have everything figured out. She didn't need to have all the answers. All she needed to do was trust in the moment and in the person sitting beside her. Together, they would figure it out. And in that moment, Emma realized that it wasn't the fear that defined her, it was the courage to face it, step by step, with someone who truly cared. The days after their conversation in the park felt like a new chapter in Emma's life. She had allowed herself to open up, to trust Lucas, and for the first time, in what felt like forever, she was beginning to understand what it meant to let go of her fears. She continued to work hard at the charity, her passion for their projects growing stronger each day. Yet, in the back of her mind, the anxiety she had once carried so deeply was slowly being replaced by hope. Lucas had kept his promise. He was there for her every step of the way. They had spent more time together outside of work, and their bond had deepened. Every moment with him felt like a small reassurance that maybe, just maybe, she was on the right path. However, there was one obstacle that was looming on the horizon. As Emma grew closer to Lucas, she began to sense a shift in her feelings for him. It wasn't just admiration or gratitude anymore. It was something deeper. She could no longer ignore the fact that her feelings for him had evolved into something more profound. She was falling for him, but it was more than that. It was the realization that she had found someone who saw her, understood her, and loved her for who she was. But as much as she wanted to embrace that feeling, there was still a part of her that hesitated. Lucas had been open with her about his feelings, but Emma was still unsure if she was ready to take the leap into a full relationship. She didn't want to rush into anything, not when she still had so much to work through herself. The decision was not easy, and she found herself constantly torn between wanting to be with him and the fear that she would lose herself in the process. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of the apartment Lucas had recently moved into, Emma felt the weight of the moment. The city lights sparkled below them, and the cool breeze carried a sense of calm. Lucas had just finished telling her about a new initiative the charity was planning, but his tone shifted when he turned to face her. "Emma," he began, his voice soft but serious. "I need to ask you something." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had no idea what he was about to say. "What's on your mind?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Lucas hesitated for a moment, his eyes searching hers. "I know we've been through a lot together, and I know we've both been taking things slow," he said. "But I think it's time we talked about where we're headed, about what we want from each other." Emma swallowed hard. She had known this conversation was coming, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to have it yet. She had spent so long avoiding the deeper questions about their relationship, but now there was no escaping them. "I'm not sure I'm ready to make any big decisions yet," she said quietly. "I've been through so much in the past, and I don't want to rush into something without thinking it through." Lucas nodded, his expression gentle. "I understand," he said, "but I need you to know that I'm here for the long haul, Emma. Whatever happens, I want to be there with you. I'm not going anywhere." His words were like a balm to her worried heart. Emma had always struggled with the idea of commitment. She was afraid of getting hurt, afraid of being vulnerable. But Lucas had never given her a reason to doubt him. He had been patient, kind, and unwavering in his support. Maybe, just maybe, she was ready to take that next step. "I don't want to rush," Emma said finally, her voice soft. "But I also don't want to keep holding back. I care about you, Lucas. I think I'm ready to see where this could go." Lucas smiled, the warmth in his eyes spreading across his face. "You don't have to be ready for everything all at once," he said. "We'll take it one day at a time, together." Emma nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. She didn't have to have all the answers right now. She didn't have to be perfect. All she had to do was trust in herself, trust in Lucas, and trust that the future would unfold as it was meant to. In the days that followed, Emma and Lucas continued to grow closer. They navigated their feelings together, never rushing, never pushing. They shared more moments of laughter, of quiet understanding, and of growing affection. Emma still had her doubts, but with Lucas by her side, they didn't feel as overwhelming as they once had. And as the weeks turned into months, Emma realized that the journey she had started with Lucas was not just about finding love, it was about finding herself. She had come so far from the person she had been when they first met. She had faced her fears, let go of the walls she had built, and learned to embrace vulnerability. With Lucas, she was no longer afraid of the future. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, hand in hand. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt ready to step into the unknown, knowing that whatever happened, she wouldn't be alone. The days that followed their conversation on the balcony felt like a turning point for Emma. She had finally allowed herself to admit that she cared deeply for Lucas, and it seemed as though their relationship was on the verge of becoming something even more significant. They spent more time together, learning more about each other's pasts, dreams, and fears. Emma felt a deep connection with Lucas, and she realized that she had begun to trust him in a way she had never trusted anyone before. Yet, despite her growing feelings for him, there was still a lingering doubt in the back of her mind. Was she really ready for the kind of commitment Lucas seemed to want? She had spent so many years focused on building her career and surviving on her own that the idea of fully opening up to someone else was still intimidating. But Lucas had been patient with her. He never pressured her, never pushed her to move faster than she was comfortable with. He simply offered his support, and for the first time in her life, Emma found herself leaning into it. One evening, after a particularly long day at the charity office, Emma found herself sitting at the same park bench where she had first opened up to Lucas about her struggles. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and the cool evening air seemed to settle the restlessness that had been building in her chest. She had been thinking a lot about her next steps. She had made so much progress in her personal and professional life, but there was still one piece of the puzzle that hadn't fallen into place yet. She wanted to take the next step with Lucas, but was she truly ready to face the future with him? Just as she was lost in thought, Lucas appeared beside her, a warm smile on his face. "I was hoping I'd find you here," he said, sitting down next to her. She smiled back, but her heart fluttered in her chest. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice soft, "about us, about what we want for the future." Lucas looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and understanding. "I've been thinking about that too," he said, his voice steady. "I know we've both had our doubts, but I also know that we've made it this far together, and I think we're ready for whatever comes next." Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her at his words. She had been holding on to her fears for so long, but now she realized that she didn't have to carry them anymore. With Lucas by her side, she could face the future without looking back. "You're right," she said, her voice steady. "I don't want to hold back anymore. I want to move forward with you, Lucas. I'm ready." Lucas's smile deepened, and he reached out, taking her hand in his. "That's all I needed to hear," he said softly. The moment felt like a small victory, the beginning of a new chapter in both of their lives. They had come so far together, and now Emma knew that they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they sat there, hand in hand, the world seemed to slow down around them. The doubts that had once plagued her mind began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of clarity. Emma wasn't just ready for the future with Lucas, she was excited for it. The next few weeks were filled with new beginnings. Emma and Lucas continued to grow closer, both in their personal and professional lives. Lucas had been more than just a support system for Emma. He had become a partner in every sense of the word. Together, they worked on new charity projects, celebrated their successes, and faced challenges with a sense of unity. For the first time, Emma felt like she was living the life she had always wanted. She was no longer just surviving, she was thriving. One day, as they stood in the office discussing plans for an upcoming event, Lucas turned to Emma with a soft smile. "You know," he said, "I never expected to find someone like you, someone who challenges me, inspires me, and makes me want to be better." Emma's heart swelled at his words. She had always admired Lucas's drive, his passion for helping others, and the way he carried himself with such confidence. But now, she realized that he saw her in the same light. "I feel the same way," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You've helped me realize that I don't have to do everything alone, and I'm so grateful for that." Lucas smiled, taking her hand in his once more. "We make a great team," he said, "and I'm excited to see where this partnership takes us." As they shared a quiet moment, Emma realized that everything had changed. She wasn't just standing beside Lucas in this moment, she was walking with him toward the future, together. She was ready to face whatever challenges came their way, and with Lucas by her side, she knew that they could handle anything. The future was no longer something to fear. It was something to embrace, something to look forward to. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt at peace with where she was and where she was going. As the months passed, Emma and Lucas continued to grow together, both professionally and personally. The charity flourished under their shared vision, and Emma's role within the organization expanded. Her confidence grew with every project she helped organize, every event she worked on, and every challenge she faced with Lucas by her side. More than just a colleague, Lucas had become her rock. They supported each other, learned from each other, and slowly but surely, their love blossomed. Emma had never imagined that her life could be so full, so complete. She had come from a place of struggle and uncertainty, but with Lucas, she had found her footing. She had found a partner who saw her potential, who believed in her dreams, and who loved her for the person she was, flaws and all. The fear and uncertainty that had once plagued her heart were no longer the dominant forces in her life. There were still moments of doubt, of course, but with Lucas by her side, they felt manageable. One evening, as they sat in the small cafe near their apartment, Emma looked across the table at Lucas, who was talking animatedly about a new charity initiative. She smiled, watching him with admiration. He had always been driven, passionate about his work, but now she saw a new light in his eyes, one that mirrored her own. They had built something together, something real and lasting. She had built something for herself, too. As Lucas finished speaking, Emma interrupted him, her voice soft but full of conviction. "Lucas," she began, "I want to thank you for everything, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself, for being patient with me when I was scared, and for showing me that love doesn't have to be complicated or difficult. It just has to be real." Lucas stopped mid-sentence, looking at her with a mixture of surprise and affection. His smile widened, and he reached across the table to take her hand in his. "I feel the same way," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I never imagined that I would find someone like you, someone who makes everything better just by being in it. You've changed my life in ways I didn't even know I needed." Emma squeezed his hand, feeling a surge of love that was almost overwhelming. She had come so far in her journey, and so had he. Together, they had faced their fears, tackled their insecurities, and emerged stronger for it. They had found something that was truly worth holding on to. As they sat there, in that quiet moment of understanding, Emma realized that this was only the beginning. The future was still unknown, but with Lucas by her side, she no longer felt afraid of what it might bring. They would face it together, hand in hand. The path ahead wouldn't always be easy, but they would walk it together, supporting each other through every step. With a deep breath, Emma smiled. She had found what she had been looking for all along, not just in the charity, but in herself. She had found her strength, her courage, and her happiness. Most importantly, she had found love, a love that was real, grounded, and unconditional. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was theirs. And that was enough. As the years went by, their love only deepened, and their bond grew stronger. Together, they built a life filled with laughter, adventure, and shared dreams. Emma's career continued to thrive, and Lucas's charity reached new heights. They traveled together, explored the world, and made a difference wherever they went. But no matter where they were, or what they were doing, they always found their way back to each other. The love that had begun so unexpectedly, in the midst of uncertainty, had blossomed into something beautiful and lasting. It was a love built on trust, respect, and the willingness to grow together. And as they looked to the future, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a team. Together, they had created something truly special, and Emma knew that their story was just beginning. In this heartwarming story of love and growth, we follow Emma, a woman who overcomes her fears and opens her heart to a successful young man, Lucas, in the world of millionaire stories. From humble beginnings, Emma works hard at a charity, finding both success and love along the way, as she faces challenges that test her strength. The story unfolds with Emma's struggle to balance her personal and professional life, finding herself torn between independence and embracing the support Lucas offers. As their connection deepens, the challenges they face together allow them to grow stronger, learning that love is built on trust, patience, and shared dreams. The millionaire stories that Emma finds herself living become not just about wealth, but about emotional fulfillment, personal growth, and the courage to step into the unknown with someone who truly cares. As Lucas supports Emma in moments of doubt, they learn that true success lies not in financial wealth, but in building a lasting relationship filled with love and mutual respect. This millionaire story shows how taking risks, both in love and life, can lead to unexpected happiness, and how facing fears together can create an unbreakable bond. Their journey in these millionaire stories is a testament to the power of love, perseverance, and the willingness to embrace vulnerability. Through their shared experiences, Emma and Lucas learn that the richest rewards in life are often not measured in money, but in the connections we make with others. Join them in this inspiring millionaire story and witness the growth of a love that blossoms amidst life's trials and triumphs, showing that no matter where you start, with the right person by your side, anything is possible.